We are live.
Awesome. Hey, good morning, Amy Lassen. How are you?
Good morning. I'm surprisingly fabulous. We've got all kinds of closures here. We had 70 degrees on Sunday, and Monday it was 20.
It was almost 70 in DC yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Weird weather, yeah. Um, I'm Charlie Bengal Jr., the CEO of REMAX Allegiance, and my co-host today is Amy Lassen, an associate broker from REMAX Properties in Colorado Springs. So greetings and good morning again. I think we have a really cool topic today. And this is something that I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody, and is my vision for REMAX Allegiance Associates. And those of you that may be watching that are not yet REMAX Allegiance Associates, or you're watching from other parts of the country and you may never be REMAX Allegiance Associates, this is still, I think, really good content for you as well. So I'm going to try to switch my screen here and share, which it all sounds easy, but when you're on Zoom and Facebook, it may not be.
Ooh.
Okay, cool. So I think we're good. You can still see my screen. Excellent. So let's start with the acronym ND.
Well, what we can see is your browser. So you need to show us your slides.
Let's try this again.
Wait, you know what? I don't know. My screen got messed up. Maybe that was me. Okay, great.
Is that better?
I don't know, because I can see it now just fine.
Okay, good. So hopefully our audience can see
Yep.
the associate vision. And there are a few parts to this vision, but we're going to start with this funny acronym ND, BS, TP, CF. And BS does not stand for what you think it might stand for. I will say that. So let's move to the next slide. ND stands for no debt. And by no debt, we mean mortgage debt is okay. I've had conversations with clients and agents this week already, and student loan debt, right? This is something that we talk about in real estate when it comes to mortgage qualification and this, this student loan debt crisis. I know college costs a lot more than when you and I were in school, right? Most people coming out of college have lots of debt, and I'm not going to say that student loan debt is bad debt. I don't think that that's fair. But by no debt, we mean the bad debt is paid off. So personal loans, personal lines of credit with high interest rates, credit cards. I was speaking to somebody yesterday and they were like, I'm good. And I said, what about credit cards? And they said, well, 10,000. And I'm like, is that good? Well, it used to be 30. So, trending in the right direction, right? But not necessarily good. So what comments do you have you have anything to add on the no debt thing?
Well, I think let's clarify, because you didn't say car loan. So
right.
So I think a mortgage is considered, is considered healthy debt. We have extraordinarily low interest rates, and your money is probably better off performing for you in a retirement account than it is having a paid off house, although different financial minds have different takes on that. Yep. And then all the rest of it, try to get rid of it, right? So I think that's the simplest way to say it, and we could debate whether or not that's true, but something like that. And when you and I were at the Tom Ferry event last week, he talked about how crazy agents get in strong markets. Yes. They decide they need twice as much house. They need a way nicer car. And he said the surest sign the recession is coming is how many realtors are driving Hummers. So if you're one of those, if you've gotten super spendy lately, maybe check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember before the Great Recession, some newer, younger agents buying very expensive cars.
Yeah.
And they lost them, right? They just weren't, they were not prepared. So a little more on the mortgage debt, making sure that you have equity is not a bad thing, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. BS does not stand for what when we
all
use
thought.
Yes, exactly. It stands for big savings, which is actually great. A big savings account. And I think that this can be different based on you and how much money you make and where you live and your financial situation, right?
Sure.
There was an agent asking me yesterday, and I have a special guest later this month on this show, and it's Linda Day Marlor, who is a CPA in the Washington metro area, and I'm going to be interviewing her before she comes and speaks to my group live on the 19th of February. But I was talking to an agent yesterday, and we were talking about how much savings is appropriate. How much cash do you
Yeah.
want in the bank? I am super conservative, right? I am, I should probably put more money in stocks, but I like a big savings account. That's me personally.
Mhm.
You've heard of 6 months reserve, you've heard of a year's reserve,
Mhm.
which for some people out there listening to a year's reserve, they're thinking, well, that's impossible. So kind of, and we're not financial planners, right? But
No, no, no.
what's your take on big savings? How would you define that?
Well, I think, our listeners have to remember they're realtors and we know who we're talking to. So when we talk about big savings, this isn't for the average consumer. This is definitely for somebody who's running a business that has overhead. So I would say a minimum of 6 months, and we say that's impossible, then we have a problem because
Yeah.
you're a business owner. You need to have operating capital in your account so that you do not panic if you have 2 months without a commission, because different things happen. And I'm not saying it's okay to ride the roller coaster of $40,000 a month, nothing.
Right.
I'm not encouraging that, but I think that if you have fat and lean months, it evens out the panic attack to know that you can have yourself on a salary and the money is still coming in.
Yep. And structured that way, which we will talk about with Linda on the Allegiance show, how to structure yourself tax-wise, being put on a salary and that whole thing. TP, taxes paid. I can say with absolute certainty that this is a problem.
Yeah.
There are, any large brokerage has agents that have tax liens at any given time. That's just the way that it is. And that's like the worst case scenario. But people that are unable to pay their quarterly taxes, and they, for some reason, believe that when they get the big commission check that it's all theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not.
Right.
So I know that our brokerage will set aside, we will actually hold back whatever you want in our account until you want it. So, it's basically a tax savings account. So if those of you that are with other brokerages, ask your broker if they can do that, because they probably can. So, that's for agents that I think really struggle with this. Others, it's putting it into that tax account and not touching it until the quarterly payment is due. But there's a lot of agents, that they just pay in January, pay in February, right, for that entire previous year. And then they realize that that they don't have enough.
Right.
So I think this is somewhat self-explanatory.
But I think not for everyone. I had a client new to my schedule who told me she didn't know she was supposed to have been paying quarterly, and she
Wow.
paid
Okay.
enormous fines. She
Yeah.
said, I just didn't even know. So speak to a tax professional, set up an LLC operating as an S Corp, set up an S Corp. We are not tax professionals.
Right.
We can't give you that advice. And pay your quarterly taxes. It's not just to avoid the pain at the end, it's because it's required.
Right. And that's state and federal. For those of you that are in states that have an income tax, do not forget about the state. And I think setting that aside and not touching it, I think, is just super important. CF, cash flow increasing. So in other words, things are on the upswing.
Yep.
I think and I think maybe you and I talked about this last week when we saw each other in person. I think just using Mint. Mint is a free app. It has its share of ads and, this and that you have to ignore. But I love Mint because it's connected to all of my accounts.
Yep.
I do not have a budget like I should. Okay. I will fully admit that. But I track my net wealth or net worth rather. And I can look and know that I'm on the right track if my net worth is higher now than it was a quarter ago or a year ago, right? And just connecting your accounts it's quite simple, and then it just updates, right? And it will even connect to Zillow, and we all love to hate our estimates, right? But it even calculates the equity in your home and adds that to your net worth. So those of you that have not heard of Mint or are not using Mint, I would encourage you to check it out. Connect your bank accounts and your homes to Zillow and see what that net worth is. And then, keep an eye on it and measure that and track it, because I think that is really a very good barometer of how things are going.
Yeah, I want to clarify for those who don't know Mint, it is a free service, and maybe there's a paid version. I don't pay for Is there a
I
pay?
don't know. I don't think so. Maybe.
And you connect all of your loans, all of your accounts, your retirement accounts, your car
Right.
loan, whatever it is,
Credit
everything
cards.
is in
Yep.
there, and it tells you at any given moment your net worth. The other thing I want to recommend is that if everyone is not using something like QuickBooks, or I have another recommendation, a free recommendation, which is Wave, WAVE.
Okay.
Functions very much like QuickBooks. Again, you tie your accounts to it, and in my case, I only tie my business accounts because I don't pay things for my business through my personal
Mm-hmm.
banking. So I don't have all of my accounts tied to that, just my business, so
Mm-hmm.
that everything that comes in there is meant for reconciliation of my business books.
Got it. Wave. I like it. It's a good tip. Cool. Second part of the associate vision, systems run my business. We could spend weeks talking about this, or I know you could. I know you could. This is like your thing, right?
Yes.
Systems and checklists, not memory. I am constantly telling agents and staff members, if you do it more than once, you need a checklist.
Right.
It really is that simple. And, I tell people that we take our associates on a cruise that have been with us, I think it's 7 or more years on a cruise on the Potomac every 2 or 3 years. And we have a checklist for that,
Mm-hmm.
even though we only do it every 2 or 3 years. So having checklists for everything and then going back, and I know you're going to talk more about this, but then going back and doing a debrief every once in a while, a checklist review after maybe a big event, what do we need to add to that checklist? What do we need to subtract while it's still fresh in our memory? And then certainly checklists for transactions and whatnot. There's great transaction management software out there. We use Paperless Pipeline for our transaction management.
Mm-hmm.
And then a good checklist system for teams is Manifestly, and that's manifest.ly. We use that for all of our agent onboarding, agent terminations, all of our events. And the beauty of it is you're able to set the end date, and then it backdates everything from this master checklist for what needs to be done when, and then you can assign people to do it. And it tells you if the checklist is late, it emails you if the checklist is late. So I had a business planning class years ago, and the person that was supposed to bring the materials forgot the business planning books. And that night I went home and was determined to figure out a way to make that not happen again. And from that, Manifestly came to REMAX Allegiant. So I know you have tons to say on this. That's that's kind of my thing there. But checklists and systems, tell us more about that.
Well, I just feel, I feel like I'm feeling the panic attack of those listening. I think this is a really daunting thing. If you're not a naturally organized person or a naturally organized agent, the idea of putting systems in place is just about the scariest part of it. And the thing that I want to share, and I tell you, this is the pep talk I have given myself over the years, is you're not wrong. This is going to be super hard. So I think we panic because we think, isn't that going to be challenging? Yeah, it's going to be super hard. So come to peace with that and quit believing that running a business this profitable, this potentially lucrative was supposed to be easy. It wasn't. It wasn't. Right. And running a business of any kind is going to require complex systems to make it run smoothly and to provide a good customer experience. So first things first, you're right, it'll be hard. Admit that to yourself and commit to doing the hard work. Then we can share lots of different options. I appreciate that you gave really concrete examples. Most of the agents that you coach and I coach are solo agents. They don't necessarily have a lot of staff, a lot of reporting. So there are simpler ways to do it for a solo agent or for a smaller team. Asana is another one.
Yes.
I use Trello, and Trello is very, very flexible. All of this is probably going to be overwhelming to those listening if they don't know any of it. So I would say go to your broker, go to your coach, ask for guidance around what would be a good place to start, because us just rattling them off may not do them any good. I do want to recommend the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. David Allen was the one who first said to me and blew my mind. He said, your brain was manufactured for creative problem solving. This is what it's for. It's a creative engine. It's not meant for mass storage. And we live in a remarkable technological age, such feelings of overwhelm. Everything changes so rapidly. Oh, now there's TikTok. How are you going to learn that platform?
Right.
One more. Oh, they just changed the MLS. Now let's go. Oh, the contracts changed. New. And us relying on our memories, I think as we get older, we blame ourselves for aging. Guess what? It's not aging. You're overwhelmed for a really legitimate reason. There is way more stuff to process and to try to master than you could possibly remember. So quit shaming yourself and start putting it in a system.
I like that. We have a few checklists, and I know that we're working to build this out at theallegianceway.com. Theallegianceway.com, you click on checklists. And for some of our solar practitioners out there, starting with a paper checklist is not a bad thing.
No.
It doesn't all need to be online and be fancy and assign tasks to everybody, like I was talking about. So starting off small is not a bad thing. Just take that one step. Track and measure everything that matters. Now, how are we defining everything that matters?
I'm asking every client to do that for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've noticed, I've been going through this with some clients over the last day or so, and most people are really good at tracking the lagging indicators, the results, the transactions, the money, right?
Yeah.
Agents are not great at tracking the leading indicators, which is conversations, appointments, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I do want to give a plug to Illume, right? If you go to tomferry.com, anybody can get a free Illume account, which allows you to create a business plan and allows you to track your transactions and your conversations and your appointments for free. We're plugging it because it's free, right? You don't even have to give your phone number, which completely blows my mind, frankly, right? You do have to give your email address. You do have to come up with a username, right? And a password. And then you can track. And the beauty of it is it connects to a lot of MLSs. So even your transactions could be tracked automatically depending on what MLS you use. But leading indicators, let's not forget that, right? Lagging indicators are busy or easy rather. It's already happened.
Yeah.
I already have the money. I already did the deal, right? But what's next? And we talked about that before. It may have been on the last Coaches show. We talked about pipeline, where to track it. What does tracking the pipeline mean to you mentally? And you told the story about it was Great Recession time, I think, and you were like almost panicked, but then you realized, wait a minute, I've got all these deals coming. I'm actually in really good shape, right? And it was like this. It was a good mental charge for you, I think, not to put
to
words
write
in
it
your mouth.
down.
Yeah,
To get
right.
it out of the attic of my memory and to write it down and realize I had a pipeline. Yeah.
Right. So track and measure everything that matters. And by the way, we're going to get into some personal goals here in a minute. And, weight, right? If you want to lose weight, you got to track it, right? Using MyFitnessPal or something else, right? So this is not, the conversation today is not just going to be about real estate. So far, it kind of has been, but we're gonna change that up here in a minute. So anything else on track and measure?
Totally. And this could potentially be overwhelming. But I was discussing this with the mastermind at my office yesterday, and I was really pleased to see that one of the ladies not only tracks her conversations, her pipeline, the leading indicators in her business, but she has a daily sheet. She has translated her business plan into a daily sheet, and at the bottom of her daily sheet she always has the number of active listings for single family in our county and how many under certain price ranges, and she looks at it every day and puts it at the bottom of her daily sheet. Track and measure, right? Track what matters.
Right.
Tracking your own market makes you way more nimble in negotiations. It makes you more persuasive in appointments. So plenty of things for you to be tracking. I don't want people to feel overwhelmed, but if you make this part of your habit and part of your routine, it will make you a more skilled practitioner.
I like it. And we had a mastermind yesterday at the office as well, and had a lot of people there. It was a good group because we had a really good mix of folks that were not with REMAX Allegiance, and it was good to hear different perspectives outside of the company. One of the issues that came up was this lack of inventory, and I've talked about it before, the lack of inventory in Northern Virginia due to Amazon HQ2.
Mm.
I'm in Virginia Beach this week for some meetings, inventory issues down here. And then when we were in San Diego last week, I was poking around looking, and it was like everything that was on the market was under contract out there as well. So this really is a nationwide issue.
Yeah.
And knowing your market and knowing your numbers, I think, is just so critically important when you do get that listing appointment. You can't blow it because you do not know your numbers. And I think spending time with the hot sheets and tracking that stuff as part of a morning routine is certainly really, really important.
Yeah.
I can leave and the business continues. Now, this is somewhat vague. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, I could leave for a day. It could be, I could go on a cruise for 3 months. Right. So however our audience chooses to define it is cool with me.
Mm-hmm.
When I've been talking to agents about this week, it's been operationally, I'm good if I leave, but the business development completely stops if I leave.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So these are things to think about. And I realize that most of the viewers watching, you don't have teams of 10, and I get that.
Yeah.
So can you leave, or even for an hour?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So your thoughts on this third part of systems here?
Boy, I think you're making such a good point. Can you leave for an hour? And it scares me the number of people who have difficulty. They say setting aside an hour. I can't do my lead generation because I got interrupted by, a
Right.
deal was on fire.
Yeah.
And I say, the last time you were in a listing appointment, did you take calls the whole time? And they're like,
Right.
no. So I think it's proof that they can choose to turn it off sometimes. But I think there's a couple of things that will set up even the solo practitioner to be better prepared for this.
Mm-hmm.
I love to share stories about my friend Elizabeth, who is so organized and does a really good job of educating her clients. So her deals aren't constantly blowing up. She doesn't spend her day putting out fires because she spent the previous weeks grooming her forest. I always talk about the difference between being a forest firefighter and a forest ranger, and she is definitely more of a forest ranger.
I like that.
She keeps her forest healthy. She does very beautiful buyer presentations and listing presentations and has reminder checklists, and her clients are never just waking up in the cold sweat wondering what's going on and needing to call her in the middle of whatever and interrupt. So her business goes more smoothly from the beginning, and I think that's step number one. Systematize the way you educate your clients so that they're not constantly saying, wait, what's the deal? What's the deal? They know what's the deal. So that's the first thing. Second thing would be, yes, that you do have systems to make your everything happen. If it's time to write a new contract, if you have an opportunity to put some business under, don't be starting over from scratch every time that happens. Make sure that that's going smoothly. And then whether you have a TC, lots of markets have the option of a per file person who will help you keep things on track for a flat fee, which is paid at closing. And then there's coverage. I have someone at my brokerage who would cover my business. I have a showing agent that I pay per hour. If I'm on a coaching call and somebody has to see a house, I'm not going to make them wait. This is a hot market, right?
Right.
My showing agent is available to make sure that that happens. And then longer term, I absolutely have people who know my business model and can cover for me if I were to step away for longer term. I'm a solo agent and I have a lot of other responsibilities. I love doing coaching and consulting, but I've made sure that my clients will be served. And that's just an example of how I manage it.
Right.
So I hope that's an example of the breadth of things that you could do to be able to step away. What about you, Charlie? Were you thinking of more details for how to get things covered?
No. And I think your examples are really good. I do the same thing using showing agents, right? You can get a lot done virtually now, right? If you're organized, and you don't necessarily, if you're going to be away, you don't have to refer the business out, right? Just get somebody to cover, and then, have a cover buddy in the office, right? You cover for them, they cover for you. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then the showing agents, there's always some agents that are a little bit slower at any given time, and paying them by the door, by the hour. They appreciate it. And then you are keeping that client relationship. You're not giving up that client as a referral, and more importantly, all the future business from that client, right? I do not typically refer out business. Years ago, I did, right? I went from sales to referring, and then I'm like, wait, why am I referring all this out, right? There's a better way to do it. So no, I think this is all really good advice.
Now, before you move ahead,
yes.
we go back. I think there's a couple of things that we could also mention with regard to both systems and checklists and tracking and measuring. There are so many other things to be tracked and measured, and I don't want to overwhelm the listeners. I just want them to understand that this is what we're talking about.
Okay.
And as they build their systems, to realize that that would be something as well. So I gave you the example, I think before we went live, about the guy at my brokerage who has decided to do 6, he's a new agent, and he's decided to do 6 open houses every single month this whole year.
Right.
And this is his main push. This is his one thing. He's going to try really, really hard to get good at it. And for those of you who don't know me, I emphasize this a lot. If you would do one thing really, really well, it would do your business so much better than if you spread yourself thin, dabbling in a lot of different things.
Yes.
So I absolutely applaud his focus. But I said to him, okay, great. Now create a spreadsheet. Every single open house, you need the address, whether it was a Saturday or a Sunday, what was the time slot, right? How did you market it? How many directional signs did you use? How many people did you attract? How many conversations did you have? What was your outcome, right? You're not going to know if this incredible press was a valuable use of a year if you aren't tracking the work that you did, the leading indicators, and then the lagging indicators, the successes that you had. So that's an example. Another would be farming. It's very hard for me and a little bit heartbreaking to have new coaching clients come into my schedule and say, well, I've been farming. And I say, interesting, tell me what farming means to you. Well, they randomly send postcards to random locations.
Right.
That's not farming. That's not a plan. And there's no way to track results there. And so I would say, please have a system for everything, predict an outcome, and then track the inputs and the outcome. And, you know, that's what coaches and brokers are for.
And I think let's go down on a tangent. I want to wait and do the last 2 parts of this vision on the next call. Let's talk a little bit more about farming and open houses and some tidbits maybe from last week. You and I were at a really great event last week.
Yes.
And open houses, I thought this was interesting. Andy C. did a class on open houses. Those of you that do not know Andy C., the spelling of his last name is T-S-E, and he's in the Bay Area, and he made $10 million last year selling real estate. And when I say that, I think most people think volume. I'm not talking volume. No, I'm talking commission, right? So this is a ton of money.
Yeah.
And yes, he has a team. And yes, his price point is high.
Yes.
But he sells a ton of homes, right?
Yes.
I mean, let's be real. Yeah. And he was talking about not just following up on open house prospects that day, but right after the open house. I thought that was interesting, right? Because I've always been an advocate of following up Sunday evening if it's a Sunday open house. There's so many agents that are lazy and they wait till Monday or Tuesday, right? And by then, the prospect may have forgot about you. They're certainly back in the work mode, family mode. The housing is not on the brain on Monday or Tuesday, right? But he's saying right after the open, and he was, and we've heard this a couple times now. Once, I think, from Jeff Mays, who is a Tom Ferry coach, and now from Andy, going deep with people as they come in the door, and not pivoting to the next person until you're done with that conversation and you realize whether you're going to get the appointment or not. Right? I think so many of us feel like we need to have these almost superficial conversations with everyone and greet everyone and this whole thing. And if you're going deep with someone, continue to do that, right? Wave to the person coming in or whatever. And if they want you, they will stick around, right? Yeah. But don't ignore the good conversation because somebody else came in the door. And that was an eye opener for me. And that now I've heard it twice, right? And when you start hearing it from different people, it's like, this is powerful. And I had a client actually last year that heard this from Jeff, and she implemented it, and she got 2 buyers from her next open house because she wasn't trying to be the butterfly spending 2 seconds with everyone, right? She was really concentrating on that one person. He also talked about farming, and he makes I would say the bulk of his money probably from farming, right? He's gone all in on farming, Saratoga. I think it's Saratoga, right? California. And he was saying 2 years, a budget of 2 years to farm. And that stuck out with me as well, because you and I have had these issues with people wanting to go level 3 on 10 different lead sources. And we're like, no, let's do level 10 on 1 or 2, right? And then we'll add once we get to a level 10, right? But I thought 2 years, we've heard 1, but he said 2 years. And I thought this was interesting because this guy is a master farmer. And I don't know how many pieces of mail he sends out per month. I don't remember, but it is a tremendous amount of mail.
Yeah.
And those of you that are thinking, oh, well, maybe it doesn't work. Again, $10 million, right? It
Right.
does work. And he told us a story of when he first started, he didn't have this kind of money, right, to spend on mailings.
Mm.
He was doing flyer drops, right? Like every day, I think he said. So, and doing open houses, right? Constant. Yeah. So these things work if you really work them, right? And, you know, I had somebody at the, speaking of open houses, we had somebody at the mastermind yesterday, and she picks up a buyer at every open.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and if you're doing 1 or 2 opens a week, 50 buyers a year, there's not anybody watching that couldn't use an extra 50 buyers a year. And if you're too busy for that, we have a solution for you, right? We'll help you grow your team, right? We have a solution. So we're a little bit over because I wanted to go down that rabbit hole of stuff from last week. Last minute parting comments.
Well,
Amy.
I just want to reinforce what you just said about following up with people who attend your open house right then and there. Mm-hmm. So what I would say is do a video text and do it in the house.
Right.
Have them, because it can even see the house behind you, right? Hi, Jan and John. It was so great talking to you. I love it that we both have a pit bull, whatever, right?
Right.
You know, say something specific. I'm going to set up that automated search for you, and I'll call you tomorrow. Bye.
Yep.
Seconds.
Totally.
Still, you know.
Totally. And I love the little commonality there, right? Because he talked about that too. Figure out what commonalities you have with people and use that to help build the rapport. So we're 2 minutes over. I hope this was a worthwhile conversation. It was for me. I'm excited about implementing this associate vision with my folks, and they're going to be hearing about it over and over and over again. So get used to it, Allegiance agents. We'll go over the second half in 2 weeks. And have a great rest of the day, Amy. Appreciate your time.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Take care.